Of course, here is a new, fully separate story with all new characters and events, based on that title, written as a continuous text without headings. The first mistake Gregory Shaw made was assuming that a black woman speaking calmly must be overreacting. The second was saying it out loud in a bank full of people. By the time the vault cameras were reviewed 3 hours later, nobody in the building was laughing anymore. And the same manager who had dismissed her warning in front of customers was standing white-faced in a glass office while security officers replayed the footage again and again. But at 10:12 that morning, all he saw was a woman in a navy coat, sensible heels, and an expression he mistook for anxiety instead of expertise. He saw a customer he thought he could brush aside. He did not see the person who was about to stop a theft his own staff had been too careless to notice. Of his professional life might never have. Of his professional life might never have happened. The Halston Trust branch on Lexington Avenue was the kind of bank designed to reassure wealthy people that money belonged in rooms like this. There were marble floors, brushed brass rails, soft gray chairs no one from the neighborhood ever seemed comfortable sitting in, and large abstract paintings selected to suggest taste without saying anything at all. The employees wore tailored Navy uniforms and smiles trained to stop just short of intimacy. On paper, Halston called itself a relationship bank. In practice, it worked best for clients whose money made staff instinctively stand straighter. Everyone else received professionalism at varying temperatures. Alina knew this before she walked in that morning. She had known it for years. At 34, Alina Brooks had the kind of face people often read incorrectly. She was composed, observant, and slow to speak unless she had something worth saying. White strangers, especially men in authority, often interpreted that reserve as uncertainty, right up until the moment they discovered it was precision. Alina worked as a contract risk analyst for commercial security firms, a career that sounded abstract until you watched her do it. She had spent nearly a decade studying procedural breakdowns, access failures, chain of custody mistakes, and the thousand small human errors that create openings for much larger disasters. Before that, she had worked internal loss prevention for a regional cash handling company, where she learned the rule that shaped almost everything after. Major incidents rarely begin with dramatic breaches. They begin with one person deciding a small irregularity does not matter. She was at Halston that morning for a simple reason. Her aunt Lorraine, who owned a tiny but successful catering business in Queens, had been too ill to come in herself and had asked Alina to accompany her assistant to deposit a sealed weekend cash intake into the business vault account. The assistant, a young Dominican man named Rafael, was at the teller window handling paperwork while Alina waited near the secure service corridor reserved for business clients. She had not intended to notice anything beyond whether the deposit bag was logged correctly, but years in her line of work had made certain things impossible to unsee. The first thing she noticed was the vault antechamber door. It closed too fast, not visibly, not to someone without trained eyes. But Alina saw the hydraulic hesitation fail in the last 2 inches, creating a soft bounce before the lock fully engaged. That alone was not proof of danger. Doors drift, closers age. But then she noticed something else. A junior vault associate with a red access badge had exited the secure corridor carrying 2 internal transfer canisters, and instead of waiting for the magnetic lock to seal behind him, he turned to answer a question from another employee and let the door hover unsecured for nearly 3 seconds. 3 seconds in a bank vault corridor is not an oversight. It is an invitation. Alina's attention sharpened. Then she saw the man in the tan overcoat. White, mid-40s, expensive shoes, the self-contained posture of someone trying to look bored while monitoring everything. He stood near a display table pretending to read a brochure on estate products, but his eyes cut twice, once to the corridor door, once to the junior employee's badge clip. Not a customer's glance, a timing check. Alina felt the internal click she had learned to trust. Something was wrong. She stepped away from the seating area and approached the nearest platform desk, where assistant manager Trevor Mills was speaking to a client. Trevor, white, late 20s, glossy hair and overconfidence, lifted one finger at her without making eye contact. "One moment." Alina waited 2 seconds, then said quietly, "This can't wait. You need to secure your vault corridor and have security review the man near the estate brochure display." That got his eyes up, but not for the right reason. He looked her over first. The coat, the plain leather tote, the fact that she was black and not visibly wealthy in the way Halston instantly recognized. His expression settled into professional impatience. "Ma'am, if you have a concern, you can speak to the front desk." "This is a security concern," she said. "Right now." Trevor gave the small smile of a man who thinks calmness itself is authority. "Our security procedures are handled internally." "I know," Alina replied. "That's why I'm telling you, you've got a corridor breach pattern and a likely spotter on the floor." He blinked once, annoyed now more than attentive. "A likely what?" "A likely spotter," she repeated. "Tan overcoat, brochure table, standing in a bank." Alina felt the standing in a bank. Alina felt the warning instinct rise higher. "Listen to me. Your vault door bounced. Your junior associate failed to confirm closure. That man clocked both events. If you do not lock down that corridor and check cameras, you may have an internal handoff in progress." Now Trevor laughed, softly but enough. A woman at the neighboring desk looked over. Alina's voice stayed even. "I'm not joking." "I didn't say you were joking," Trevor said in the tone people use when they mean irrational. "I'm saying you may not understand what you're seeing." That was when Gregory Shaw entered the moment. Gregory was the branch manager, white, 51, silver at the temples, and proud of the fact that his staff described him as unflappable. He moved through the bank with the practiced ease of a man who believed calm authority and good tailoring could solve most things before lunch. He saw Trevor at his desk, saw the black woman standing beside it, saw two customers beginning to notice, and came over already halfway committed to ending what he assumed was a customer complaint. "Is there a problem here?" he asked. Trevor exhaled in relief. "This woman thinks one of our clients is somehow casing the vault." Gregory turned to Alina with the faintly indulgent expression some men reserve for women they expect to soothe or dismiss. "Ma'am, I assure you our security is quite robust." Alina held his gaze. "Then you should have no problem testing it. Secure the corridor. Check the last 10 minutes of internal camera footage. And keep the man in the tan coat inside the lobby until you do." The fact that she sounded informed irritated him immediately. Gregory had spent years in banking and disliked being instructed in public, especially by people he did not instinctively place in his hierarchy of expertise. "Are you employed in bank security?" he asked. "No," Alina said. "Risk analysis." "For whom?" "That's not the relevant question." A few nearby customers were openly listening now. Gregory's mouth tightened. He heard not urgency but challenge. "The relevant question," he said, "is why you are disrupting my floor with unfounded accusations against another customer." "They're not unfounded. You have no proof. I have pattern recognition, and about 90 seconds before whoever's involved realizes your people are too careless to notice what's happening." Trevor shook his head and gave a short laugh. Gregory chose the wrong side of the moment. "That will be enough," he said sharply. "If you continue harassing clients and staff, I'll have security escort you out." There it was, public, deliberate. The dismissal shaped not only by pride, but by that deeper social certainty some white men never learned to question. That a black woman sounding sure of herself in a space built around institutional authority must be corrected before she is considered. A stillness spread across Alina's face. She had seen this kind of reaction before. Not just resistance to being wrong, resistance to the possibility that she might be right in a way that exposed other people as careless. "You're making a mistake," she said. Gregory folded his hands in front of him, the picture of managerial control. "And I think you're making a scene." That line did it, not because it hurt her feelings, because it told her exactly who he was in crisis, a man more concerned with appearances than facts. She turned her head slightly and looked past him. The man in the tan overcoat was gone. Alina's eyes hardened. "Where is he?" Gregory glanced back, irritated now by the implied drama. "I'm not tracking every customer in the building." "You should be tracking that one." At that exact moment, from somewhere beyond the secure corridor, a buzzer sounded. Short, wrong. Not the main alarm, but the kind that indicates access interruption on an internal control point. Trevor straightened. Gregory turned instinctively toward the sound. Alina did not move. Then a second tone joined the first, this one sharper, sustained. Now the whole room reacted. A teller looked up from her station. Raphael stopped signing the deposit slip. A security guard near the entrance touched his earpiece. Gregory's face changed in the smallest way possible. Not fear yet, but the first crack in certainty. He turned to Trevor. "What is that?" Trevor swallowed. "It sounds like subvault access," Alina said very quietly. "Yes." Everything moved fast after that. Gregory barked for internal lockdown. Security rushed toward the service corridor. The glass doors at the entrance sealed automatically with a soft magnetic thud. Customers began murmuring in alarm. An older woman stood up too quickly and knocked her handbag from her lap. Through it all, Gregory looked once at Alina and realized, too late to hide it, that the last person he wanted to make eye contact with in that moment was her. 2 minutes later, internal security called from the vault level. There had been an unauthorized attempt to access a cash holding compartment adjacent to commercial deposit storage. Nothing major appeared missing yet, but a transfer tray had been moved off sequence, and one vault associate, Ethan Pike, white, 23, the junior staffer with the red badge, could not account for why his credential pinged twice within a restricted interval. Gregory demanded camera review immediately. The security office sat behind frosted glass on the mezzanine level. Gregory, Trevor, 2 bank security officers, and eventually a regional compliance director crowded in front of 3 monitors while the recorded footage was pulled. Alina had not been invited upstairs. She came anyway because once the lockdown began, no one had the energy or moral standing left to stop her. She stood near the back wall, arms folded, saying nothing. Raphael remained downstairs with the deposit paperwork, looking both frightened and fascinated. The first camera angle showed the corridor entrance from above, the junior associate exiting with 2 canisters, the door bouncing. Gregory's jaw tightened. Trevor stared at the screen and said nothing. The next angle showed the lobby floor, tan overcoat at the brochure table, looking up at the corridor, looking at the badge, looking away whenever staff faced forward. Then 43 seconds later, Ethan Pike re-entered the corridor alone with a 3rd canister, and paused just long enough for the man in the tan coat to cross behind a column and slip into the antechamber before the door fully sealed. Nobody in the room breathed. The footage advanced. Inside the antechamber, another camera showed exactly how it happened. Ethan did not seem surprised to see the man. That was the worst part. No startle, no confusion. He simply moved one internal tray aside while the man reached into the service alcove where high-value temporary deposit canisters waited for full lock rotation. The theft was elegant in its simplicity. Not a smash and grab, but a timed interception of 2 sealed transfer packets before registry. One disappeared into the false lining of the tan coat. Then the man stepped back into the blind spot and exited just as another employee approached from the lower passage. Gregory watched the scene like a man slowly understanding that reality had become hostile to his earlier confidence. Trevor went white. One of the security officers muttered, "Jesus." Then the last angle played. The tan-coated man leaving the lobby 6 seconds before Gregory threatened to have Alina escorted out. Silence. It was not merely that she had been right, it was the precision of how right she had been. Spotter, corridor timing, badge observation, internal handoff. All of it. Gregory stood with one hand braced against the back of a chair, as if the room's balance had shifted under him. The regional compliance director, a severe white woman named Marlene Fitch, turned slowly toward him. "Mr. Shaw," she said, "is there a reason the customer who identified the risk was not taken seriously immediately?" No one answered, because every possible answer was disgraceful. Gregory looked at Alina at last. "Ms. Brooks," he swallowed once. "Ms. Brooks, She did not rescue him. "You told me I was making a scene?" Marlene Fitch's eyes moved from Gregory to Trevor and back again. "Get Pike detained. Lock his access. Call corporate security and NYPD financial crimes. Now." The next hour fractured into controlled chaos. Ethan Pike was found in a stairwell trying unsuccessfully to text someone from a personal phone he was not supposed to have on shift. He broke quickly once confronted with the footage. The man in the tan coat had approached him 2 weeks earlier through an online betting contact, offered him money to help identify a weakness in commercial deposit handling, and coached him through the timing. The plan had depended on a lobby distraction lasting just long enough for the handoff to pass unnoticed. What none of them had expected was a woman in a navy coat who understood vault behavior better than the bank manager. Police arrived. Statements were taken. Temporary loss estimates were calculated, then revised downward when officers recovered the stolen deposit packets in a trash receptacle 2 blocks away, abandoned after the suspect realized the lockdown had narrowed his exit options. The suspect himself was caught by transit police that evening, still wearing the tan overcoat and still convinced he had nearly gotten away with it. Throughout all of it, Alina remained almost unnervingly calm, not triumphant. Calm. She gave her statement with clean factual precision, described exactly what she saw, and declined every attempt by staff to reframe her intervention as fortunate instinct. It wasn't instinct, she corrected once. It was procedure recognition. That mattered to her. She was tired of expertise being treated like magic when it came from people the institution had not already approved. At 1:40 p.m., when the branch finally reopened its public floor, Gregory asked if she would step into his office. The glass-walled room overlooked the lobby. Half the staff were still visibly shaken. Trevor could not seem to meet her eyes. Gregory closed the door behind them, and for a moment the sound of the bank dimmed. He looked older than he had 3 hours earlier, the way some men do when pride has been publicly removed faster than they can recover it. "Ms. Brooks," he said, "I owe you an apology." "Yes," she replied. He seemed to need a second to continue. "I dismissed your warning. I did so publicly. And if I had listened when you first spoke, we might have prevented the attempt entirely." "Might have," Alina said. "Yes." He nodded, accepting the sting because he had earned it. "Your intervention protected this branch, our clients, and likely a significant amount of capital. I would like to make that recognition formal." Alina looked through the glass at the floor where he had embarrassed her less than 4 hours ago. "Recognition isn't the part I'm interested in." Gregory's brow tightened. "What part are you interested in?" She turned back to him. "The part where your staff are trained to hear substance before status. The part where a black woman doesn't need a vault camera to prove she's worth listening to in a crisis. The part where your assistant manager doesn't laugh when someone names a security pattern he should have seen himself." Each sentence landed cleanly. Gregory had the decency not to defend Trevor. "Understood. Do you?" she asked, not harshly, just precisely. Because this wasn't just a security failure, it was a judgment failure, and those usually repeat. He held her gaze, perhaps recognizing that every conventional apology phrase available to him would sound thinner than paper. "Then help me make sure it doesn't." Alina almost smiled at that, not from warmth, but from surprise. "What does that mean?" "It means corporate security is going to ask how you saw what my team missed. It means Marlene Fitch already asked for your background. And it means if you are willing, I would like to recommend you as an external consultant during our procedural review." Now it was her turn to pause. Not because the offer dazzled her, because irony had a way of arriving overdressed. She had walked in as someone he was prepared to remove from the floor. Now he wanted her judgment formalized on paper. "I'll consider it," she said. He nodded once. "Fair enough." When she stepped out of his office, something subtle had changed in the bank. Not the decor, not the institutional chill, not the fact that many people in rooms like this still made assumptions too quickly. But the staff had seen the footage. They had seen who was right. More importantly, they had seen how completely authority had failed before expertise corrected it. Trevor approached her near the entrance, face flushed and voice low. "Ms. Brooks, I'm sorry. I should have listened." She studied him for a second. He looked young suddenly. Not polished, not assured. "Young." "Yes," she said. "You should have." Raphael came over from the teller line carrying the finalized deposit receipt for her aunt's business, still wide-eyed from the entire morning. "Miss Alina," he said, half laughing now that fear had somewhere to go, "I'm never going anywhere with you again unless it's armored." That made her laugh for the first time all day. The story traveled quickly through Halston Trust, then through corporate, then more quietly through the city's interbank security networks. Not the part Gregory would have chosen, of course. Not the polished version about responsive systems and client care. The real version. The black woman warned them. The manager brushed her off. The cameras proved she was right. Training departments love stories like that once the embarrassment belongs to someone else. Within 3 weeks, Alina Brooks had 3 consulting inquiries and 1 formal contract proposal from Halston's parent company. She accepted only one, a 6-month engagement to audit branch-level escalation failures and customer-originated security reporting. Gregory Shaw remained branch manager, though with a procedural reprimand severe enough that everyone understood his next mistake would likely be his last. Trevor was reassigned out of public security response. Ethan Pike was charged. As for Alina, she visited her aunt that Sunday with takeout soup and the news that the deposit had gone through fine. Lorraine, wrapped in a blanket on the couch and still weak from pneumonia, listened to the whole story with widening eyes. When Alina finished, her aunt shook her head slowly and said, "So a whole bank full of people had to wait for a camera to believe what you already knew." Alina sat back and let out a tired breath. "Pretty much." Lorraine gave her the look only older black women can give, half sorrow and half steel. "Baby, that's this country in one sentence." Maybe it was, but not the whole sentence, because there was another part too, the part where she had spoken anyway. And in the end, that was what Gregory Shaw. And in the end, that was what Gregory Shaw never saw coming. Not just that Alina Brooks was right, but that she was the kind of right that leaves evidence behind. The kind of right that survives condescension. The kind of right that plays back on vault cameras until every person in the room has to watch their assumptions collapse in high definition.